Hello and welcome back to the Sociolinguistics channel. Today we're exploring the fascinating intersection of culture, identity and communication, language and ethnicity. It's more than just how we speak, it's about who we are. Let's break down what these concepts mean, how they connect, and why they matter. Language and ethnicity are two powerful aspects of human identity, yet they're often taken for granted. Ethnicity refers to shared cultural traits, heritage, and most importantly, a sense of shared identity among a group of people. This might include things like traditions, religious practices, or shared histories. Now, language, on the other hand, is the tool that facilitates communication and crucially serves as a vessel for expressing these ethnic identities. When we start looking at how language and ethnicity interact, a fascinating picture unfolds. Language can serve as a badge of identity. It can unite or separate people and even play a significant role in how individuals and groups are perceived in wider society. One of the clearest ways language contributes to expressing ethnic identity is through the use of heritage languages. Take, for instance, the Hispanic community in the United States. For many families, speaking Spanish is not just about practical communication, but is tied to cultural heritage and a deep sense of identity. In households where Spanish is spoken alongside or even preferred over English, it symbolizes a link to their family roots, connecting them to relatives in other countries or to stories passed down through generations. This is not just a feature of immigrant communities in the United States, it's seen globally. In many parts of the world, languages are fiercely guarded as symbols of ethnic pride. For example, in Wales, the Welsh language is cherished as a marker of identity and cultural heritage, distinguishing Welsh people from the predominantly English-speaking majority in the United Kingdom. Efforts to promote and preserve Welsh, including Welsh language classes in schools and bilingual road signs, underline the strong link between language and ethnic identity. Language can also act as a social boundary, both intentionally and unintentionally. Imagine stepping into a room where everyone is speaking a language you just don't understand. That feeling of exclusion is more than just linguistic, it's deeply social. Language can function as a gatekeeper, allowing in those who share the same background while marking outsiders. A well-documented example of this is the use of code switching, where bilingual or multilingual speakers shift between languages depending on the social context. Code switching can happen within conversations, sometimes to assert identity. For example, many African American communities in the United States use African American vernacular English, not only as a way of speaking, but as a symbol of shared identity and culture. AAVE has its own unique grammar, vocabulary, and intonation patterns that distinguish it from standard American English. For those within the community, using AAVE can signify solidarity, shared experiences, and resistance to assimilation. However, this can be a double-edged sword. While AAVE represents a powerful ethnic identity, it can also subject speakers to negative stereotypes and discrimination when used in public spaces dominated by standard English norms. This example illustrates how language can mark membership, but can also contribute to marginalization when societal norms dictate what is acceptable or standard. When we talk about language and ethnicity, we can't ignore the social biases and prejudices that accompany them. Linguistic discrimination, or linguicism, occurs when people are judged, marginalized, or even ostracized based on the language they speak or the way they speak it. These prejudices often stem from deep-seated ideas about ethnic superiority and inferiority. Take, for example, the prejudice faced by speakers of indigenous languages in various parts of the world. In Latin America, indigenous communities such as the Quechua or Aymara speakers have historically faced discrimination, partly due to their language. Spanish, the language of colonizers, became synonymous with power and prestige. while indigenous languages were relegated to being perceived as inferior or backward. This linguistic bias perpetuated social inequalities and reinforced the marginalization of indigenous groups. The legacy of these prejudices continues today. In many countries, children from ethnic minority backgrounds may feel pressured to abandon their native language in favor of a dominant language spoken by the majority group. This process, known as language shift, can lead to the loss of cultural identity and contribute to the endangerment of heritage languages. Yet not all hope is lost. There are numerous inspiring examples of communities rallying to preserve their linguistic heritage. Language revitalization efforts aim to breathe new life into languages that are at risk of disappearing. The Maori community in New Zealand has taken significant steps to revive the Maori language, Te Reo Māori, through initiatives like immersion schools, public broadcasting in Maori, and government recognition of its importance. Such efforts are more than just linguistic preservation. They are powerful affirmations of ethnic identity and cultural pride. When a community invests in keeping its language alive, it sends a message that their culture, history, and identity are worth preserving. This revitalization helps counteract decades of assimilationist policies and supports intergenerational transmission, where older members of the communities pass their language on to younger generations. So how does language shape ethnic identity on a deeper level? First, it's essential to recognize that language carries with it more than just words. It embodies values, ways of thinking, and cultural nuances that don't always translate neatly into another language. Linguists often talk about linguistic relativity, the idea that the language you speak can influence how you perceive the world. A simple example is found in the way different languages express concepts of time. In many Western languages like English, time is linear. People talk about the past being behind them and the future ahead. However, in the Aymara language spoken by the indigenous people in the Andes, the past is conceptualized as being in front because it's known, while the future is behind since it's unknown. These subtle differences highlight how language shapes not just communication, but fundamental aspects of perception and worldview, which are closely tied to ethnic identity. What about people who belong to mixed ethnic backgrounds or grow up in multicultural environments? These individuals often develop unique linguistic practices that reflect their blended identities. A common example is Spanglish, a combination of Spanish and English, spoken by many people of Hispanic descent in the United States. Spanglish isn't just a random mix of two languages. It's a fluid linguistic expression that captures the dual identity of being both Hispanic and American. For individuals who speak mixed or hybrid languages, their way of communicating becomes a symbol of their personal and shared experiences. It showcases the complex nature of modern ethnic identities, which aren't always neatly defined, but are instead a blend of influences that shape fluidly who people are. In conclusion, the relationship between language and ethnicity is complex, multifaceted, and deeply embedded in our social fabric. Language is more than just a tool for communication. It's a powerful marker of ethnic identity, a source of pride, and, at times, a battleground for acceptance and recognition. It can unite people within a community while simultaneously setting them apart from others. Through language, we express who we are, where we come from, and what we hold dear. In today's globalized world, we're witnessing an increasing blend of cultures, which means the boundaries between languages and ethnic identities are becoming more blurred and more fluid. Yet the importance of preserving and respecting linguistic diversity remains critical. By understanding the role language plays in shaping ethnic identities, we gain insight into the broader picture of human culture and diversity.